Hello, I'm Michael from the Petaluma Community Access, and today we have the good fortune to have a guided tour by Amelie Myron from the Petaluma Historic Library and Museum. This show is appropriately named I Do, where we will learn about the history of weddings and the textiles that were worn with a focus on Petaluma. The earliest dresses were made from silk going back to the late 1850s to the early 1960s, where the garments were made by sewing machines as they were starting to gain popularity. Fast forward to the 1920s, 100 years ago, the vast majority of households could then begin to afford the home sewing machine as they became more affordable, but still a luxury. During that era, the most expensive aspects of the garment was the textile cloth, while these days the labor costs are the most important cost factor. Well, okay, let's have Amelie share the treasures of the I Do tour at the Petaluma Historic Library and Museum. Off we go.
We're going to head into the McNear's parlor.
Okay, let's do it.
Talk a little bit about their textiles.
McNear parlor. We're going to learn about the McNear family,
Yes.
I have a feeling.
So if you live in Petaluma or have been here for any span of time, you've probably heard the name McNear. And these are some of the wedding dresses that belong in the McNear's family. And these are also great representations of the work that I do as a textile conservator at the Petaluma Museum. Over here we have Charlotte Edwards' dress. And this garment is shattering. So you see this looks really tattered.
Literally, not figuratively.
No. So this is actually a process because of the metal salts in the textile. The textiles were weighted. Silk especially was weighted with these metal salts that are impregnated into the
metal
fibers.
salts?
Yes.
What could go wrong? I mean, is there the saying that sailors have rust never sleeps?
Yeah.
Metal and salt?
Exactly. So it's essentially sawing away at the actual fibers. So we see this is an example of the sort of textile issues we face at the museum. And so to make this dress able to be displayed, I have taken a pattern off of the more intact sleeve of this dress, and I have replicated that in a silk, and I have inserted it into the sleeves and attached it in order to ensure that this garment can be displayed.
That must have taken some special training as a conservator to do this.
Yeah, so that's part of, there's the principles of conservation. I really want to make sure all the work that I do can be reversed. It's reversible, and I don't want to do anything, so nothing permanent to the textile. And I'm really prioritizing preservation over the beauty. In this case, you can see I didn't really match the fibers. I didn't match the color of my insert to the original garment. I really wanted to be able to show this is what textile aging looks like.
Do you think that on this a garment like this that it's wear it one time and then put it away, or you eventually give it to your offspring? Or tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on the life of this this beautiful garment.
That's a really good question. So textiles were much more expensive in the past than they are today. Now textiles are really cheap, and we wear a lot of them, and they're very disposable, which is an unfortunate sort of fact of our modern world. So especially for wedding dresses, you might think, if your friend wore her wedding dress to your wedding, you'd probably be pretty upset today. But in the past, that really wasn't the same thing. It was, you might wear your wedding dress is your best dress. So you'd wear it for your wedding, and you'd wear it to church, and you'd wear it to all these different events, depending on sort of class. And that really depends. Sort of the wealthiest people could afford to be really disposable with their textiles. But the less wealthy you were, the more sort of precious these garments were, and so you're really prioritizing reusing them. And they might graduate from your best dress to your second best dress, and then your third best dress, and then you might make it into clothes for your kids, or you might make it into a quilt, or it might be stuffing, or it could be a number of things.
Now the McNear family, how they fit into this, I guess they were an affluent family, and probably over the generations, the offspring and things. So what was their claim to fame? I guess they were just originally landowners, and I guess then they had businesses?
Yes, sir. So the McNears were a wealthy family in Petaluma. They're very influential in sort of our early history, and also continue to be. And McNear's descendants still live in the area and throughout the country. And so we really wanted to highlight them as sort of, we have a lot of, I wish we had more representation of different sort of sections of society in this wedding dress exhibit, but this is sort of, in a smaller town, this is sort of the upper echelon of society. This is what they were wearing.
And we have some pictures here of the family?
Yes, sir. So here we have a picture of Ida Bell, whose dress this is. You can see her over there. And then that dress is just beautiful. And then with this dress, we have her picture here in the corner. And then this is Ida Bell's daughter, so Miriam McNear. This is a portrait of the McNears, and this is Miriam's wedding dress and going away dress over here.
And going away dress?
Yes, her going away suit, really.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and it's beautiful.
And these garments, I take it, are actually fairly heavy then, aren't they?
It depends. So sort of we see this, earlier garments tend to be much heavier. So sort of Ida Bell's dress from the 1880s is much heavier than Miriam's dress from 1912. There's sort of this change in understanding of how clothes are put together, where this textile is actually very lightweight. And sort of we have to factor that in when building mannequins and putting these garments on display. How can they be on display? Can they support their own weight?
Yeah, which gets into the question, I guess, is that Victorian era, early Victorian and later Victorian, think about the French and fashion. I mean, does it mostly come from the English or the French, or you just say European, or where does this come from, do you think?
So France was and still is sort of the seat of fashion as we consider it. And there were sort of general European fashions were sort of the trend you might see, and actually in this era sort of print culture has exploded by the late Victorian period. So we have fashion magazines. Godey's Lady's Book is the most famous probably.
Oh, okay.
And so you would sort of see these fashion plates, you see these illustrations of what the latest styles are in France, in Paris, and also sort of on the East Coast from the West Coast, where, you know, sort of these newer cities, we're looking back to the East Coast.
And eventually it comes out west.
So it sort of depends on where we're getting our influence, especially in this era. But there is sort of this fashion for European textiles and garments.
Well, thank you. You want to go on to some other areas then, or what else do we have?
And head on into the next section. Yeah, this dress is just lovely. And this is one of the few unknown brides we decided to feature because this dress is just so exceptional. So we have some dresses in our collection that have been donated by people, and we don't have the records of who they belong to, unfortunately. And so we haven't put many of those on display just because we really want, these are families that still live in Petaluma, many of them, the descendants of these people who wore these dresses, and they love to see their dress on display, and we love sort of being able to connect the dots. Yeah, so it's exciting to see a family be like, that was my mom's wedding dress, that was my grandma's wedding dress. So we tend to prioritize when we have limited space and limited mannequins, we want to really make sure those people can see their dresses.
I never thought about that. Then there's the mannequin aspect, isn't it? And I understand a previous walkthrough you had is that you've been involved with some of the manufacture, I guess, is you have to almost be a sculptor, don't you?
You really do. It's surprising the knowledge of human anatomy you have to build a mannequin. So I am one of the people who helps build mannequins. I volunteer with Solange, who is the collections manager, who is incredible and very knowledgeable. We're very lucky to have her. So when we're building a mannequin for the museum, we take conservation grade foam blocks and we glue them together.
Looks like you've taken out a lot of the area from here, wasn't it?
So
on the midsection.
Essentially, we take measurements of the garments, and then we can sort of carve that out of a foam block. So we get an approximate idea of what the body is going to look like of the mannequin, and then we cover it in a knit cotton tube.
Right.
And then we pat it out using essentially like batting. Like if you've ever made a stuffed animal, people at home, if you've ever made a stuffed animal, you can sort of understand that it's that polyfill essentially, and you're sort of patting out to sort of get the final shape, and this entire time you're checking to make sure the measurements are aligning and the proportions are right to really make a mannequin custom for this dress.
You know, it just occurred to me, the gathering, I guess you don't have to manufacture something, because if they're wearing a corset or something, that helps to give you the size, doesn't it?
Yeah, so actually we don't have corsets under these historic garments. For several reasons. What we do sometimes, we have petticoats, and if they have like a bustle, if you think of the 1880s, you think of this bustle shape. So we are really building out, in that case, a custom support that would really mimic that shape. Yeah. Right.
I guess you wouldn't have to put it on them, but I mean, if you wanted to look at the dimensions of them, you could get the feel for the shape, the way it should be shaped.
Like,
Well, certainly gorgeous. And look at these petite shoes, though. Tell us a little bit about that.
So these are children's shoes.
Yes,
Here's one example of what shoes look like. And historic shoes look so tiny to this, and in some cases they are. There's something in museums that we call survival bias. So essentially, we might have this idea that everyone in the past was really, really tiny, and that's actually not true. People of all sizes have always existed. But really, the garments that survive are the ones that can't be worn by many, many people over time. So a garment that survives couldn't be worn by your sister or your cousin or your aunt. So this dress wasn't getting passed around. This is what survives.
Right.
And it's also, unfortunately, there's fat phobia in museum collecting. So people would they thought it was more attractive to have a smaller dress in many cases in the past.
Oh,
throughout
even
the
then.
history of museum collecting,
Okay.
So they would prioritize collecting smaller textiles, which unfortunately gives us this sort of twisted understanding of everyone was tiny in the past, which really wasn't the case. Although early childhood nutrition does make a difference in adult
Yes, that's a very good point. Yes.
So there's sort of that difference, but it really wasn't. People have always existed who are all different sizes.
Well, I guess here we had the eggs and the dairy cows, so there were some forms of protein. I'm looking at this here as like, can you tell me a little bit? I won't touch it, but like, what in the world am I seeing? It's so gorgeous, all the stitching.
It's really beautiful. That's why we decided to put this one
almost
on
like
display.
tassels.
Yeah, so there are these silk tassels. This is silk thread, and this is a form that's been covered in silk thread right there. This is a silk velvet, but the body of this dress is a really lightweight wool.
When you say, I'm familiar with silk, but when you say velvet, and what does that mean when you say silk and velvet?
So there's a difference between a fiber and a fabric. A fiber is a material. It's like silk, wool, cotton.
Right.
It's actually the actual fiber,
the textile
that grows.
material, right.
So like wool, you shear off a sheep, cotton, you pick from the cotton bolls. Linen is sort of another plant fiber. Silk is from the silkworm. And then the fabric is what it's woven into. So there can be like satin is a fabric, not a fiber. There can be a silk satin. There can be a rayon satin. There can be these fibers. There's a fiber and a fabric. So this is essentially a velvet. So that's a plain weave with what's called a pile, kind of like a carpet. It's like a miniature version of a carpet. So there's like these little tiny threads that are pushed through the plain weave. And that's all silk. So the fiber is silk, the fabric is a velvet.
Now that you mention it, I have a rug that I got from Turkey, and you can get them either in wool or wool and cotton, which are more because you have more threads to the inch with the cotton. Or if it's silk, you can get 2,000, so it's going to cost 10x, maybe 100x as much if it's going to be in silk.
Exactly. Silk is a really labor-intensive and resource-intensive material. Silk is produced by boiling the cocoons of silkworms and then unspooling that, and it's a really crazy process that's been done for a very long time.
I've seen that process, yes.
And it's so strange to look at a little cocoon. You think of a bug, you don't really think of that as making such a beautiful textile, but it really is sort of an example of the wonderful wealth of textile science and sort of what we have available to us in natural fibers.
Wonderful. Show us some more. This is getting great. Learning so much here today.
I'm trying my best. So this is actually the other part of Ida Bell's dress. We saw it in the McNear parlor. This is her evening bodice. So what's unique about this sort of mid to late Victorian period is that you might have, because textiles were so expensive, you might have a skirt and multiple bodices made in the same fabric, so they're interchangeable. And that really is economical. So even for a family as wealthy as the McNears, they are still prioritizing economy in their clothing. It's really considered like a virtue.
Right.
So you could change from your evening bodice or your dinner bodice, which is what the mannequin is wearing now, to your evening bodice, and you sort of switch it out. And you have all different outfits, but wearing the same textile. You're not actually buying all this yardage to make a whole new garment. Yeah.
Sounds like they would have to have so many closets, but as my recollection, when you look at a Victorian home, they don't have any closets. They have a dresser or things where you put things.
You don't have built-ins, But they did. I mean, people had less clothes.
Right, that's
the case.
They didn't
have as few clothes as some people think. They had multiple outfits. You might have several outfits, depending especially on your family's sort of financial situation. But even the McNears sort of were economizing on their textiles.
Oh, okay. So what era might this be then? This is it the turn of the century to the 1900s or just before?
1887.
Okay, getting close.
Yes. So the 1880s is sort of this very tail end, and it's really the Industrial Revolution has really taken hold, and you can see that in textiles, and you can also see that sort of in different areas.
Now, there's so much around this room here. I'm sure we don't have enough time to go through everything, but and here's like 1942. So how do all these pieces? I mean, it must be so hard as a curator how you fit everything together. Tell us a little bit about the process.
So this process, I help the collections manager Solange and sort of pick out the dresses. We have these binders and binders of dresses, and actually textiles represent the largest part of our museum collection at the Petaluma Museum. We're very lucky to have this incredible textile collection featuring especially a lot of Victorian textiles, sort of understanding our early past in Petaluma, which is exciting.
Okay, the question comes, where do you store it all?
Yeah, we have off-site storage.
Okay,
it's not here.
That would
our
have
basement,
to be.
Unfortunately, is not safe for textiles, so we don't keep them there.
Yes, okay.
But so to decide, we sort of, in this exhibit, we really prioritized having garments that are connected to a family. So we have,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so we really want to make sure, if someone wants to come see their grandma's dress,
Yeah,
it's
it's
here.
almost the legacy of the Petaluma families,
And that makes it
yes.
really special, and people, I love seeing when someone has a personal connection to an item in the museum, especially an item that I've loved working on. It's sort of, I feel like I know that person through their garment that I've worked on. It's so special. It's so intimate getting to work on someone's clothing. And then getting to sort of see their descendant and sort of have that connection of, oh, I worked on your grandma's dress, I worked on your great-grandma's dress. What an honor it is.
Well, I don't know when you got here, but you didn't get off the turnip truck. As I heard you before, you said you graduated here at Petaluma High School.
I did,
so
yes, sir.
You have lived here for a while.
I am a graduate of Petaluma High. I've lived here for the vast majority of my life.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. There's no better place to be. Really
Where do you want to go next? What else we got to see?
Yes. So let's see. On just sort of we have our naked lady, as we're calling her. She doesn't look very...
should I tell the men that they shouldn't watch this part?
I think they'll be okay. She doesn't look very naked to us. But
Okay.
to somebody in the past, she might look very naked. And so this is sort of a combination of original and reproduction garments that we have on display just to give people an idea of what people wore under their dresses. And so this piece on top is a corset cover, and you wear that over your corset. It's really to protect your outer garments from your corset and to hide those lines, really smooth it out, sort of like a slip, if people are familiar with that. And then we have an example of a hoop skirt. Now this one's a reproduction.
A hoop skirt.
Yes, sir. So it's sort of like a mix of eras. So this one's from around 1900. This is original, and this one's a reproduction, but it would have represented sort of an 1860s
Okay.
Hoop skirt. And it's sort of the best way to think of it is like a slinky, because you might look at it and be like, how on earth are people moving around? It must be so
a slinky.
inflexible and
I
heavy.
hear what you're saying.
But
I
it's really,
get it.
it's
It kind of
very
it has some
lightweight.
bounce to
Yeah,
it.
and it collapses. It's really collapsible. So it's sort of it's a very lightweight garment.
Huh.
And then here's everybody's favorite question: is how do they use the bathroom?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm
look at all these clothes here. I mean, it would take like
Exactly.
15, 20 minutes to get to
Yeah.
the restroom.
And so I'm going to touch this because it's a reproduction.
Okay.
But you can see we have split drawers here. So
What?
these are two separate legs that are attached to one singular waistband.
Ah.
And not at all, the
How
crotch seam
clever.
is not at all sewn. So people can use the restroom without having...
These women were so clever.
It's really incredible. And sort of this bifurcated undergarment for women came about sort of in this hoop skirt era. Previous to that, women didn't wear a bifurcated undergarment. They would have just worn their layers of petticoats. And their chemise were sort of like a slip, essentially, under their corset.
Okay.
But we see this sort of split drawer come about in this period. And these ones are from around maybe the 1890s. So we sort of have this mix of eras going on, but we just want to really represent to people what goes under these magical dresses.
You know, if I can just add, just made me think about my mother growing up in Minnesota, don't you know? And so in the 1930s, when she was a girl, they didn't necessarily have bloomers if you were a farm girl, but they had the bag that the flour and things would come in. And my mother said they always got a kick when one of the girls, her quote bloomers was actually, and you saw the word Dakota, because Dakota, right next to Minnesota, and they had the bags that was in, and if you saw a girl that said Dakota on her undergarment, that was it. So sometimes if you're a farm person, you have ways of making these work.
And that's sort of another example of how thrift and textiles were so expensive, and we don't think of it today, but in the past there were all sorts of different ways that you would be sort of, where are you getting your textiles? How can you economize with your textiles? And in some cases, using feed sacks.
Feed sack, exactly that, yes.
We have some in our collection. We don't have as many, but there's sort of a special era where they were actually, these companies were sort of catching on to the fact that women were using this fabric to make clothing, so they would put out these really beautiful, colorful prints. You see this in the 30s and 40s. They put out these really beautiful cotton prints to sort of incentivize women to buy their specific brand. And you want to get enough for a dress, so you want to buy all that one brand.
Yes. Do you think it costs more to hand make these garments than it would be? I'm sure you could probably buy them from the East Coast where things were, quote, manufactured, or did the McNears, would they mostly have, do you think, handmade, or would they purchase some?
That's a really good question. So it depends. In this earlier era, in this Victorian era, we don't really see mass manufactured textiles in the same way that we see it now. So maybe you could buy what was called a wash dress, which is like a sort of a simple cotton dress.
A wash dress.
A wash dress. Yeah, we talked about this on the tour.
Tell us about wash dresses.
Yeah, so they're just sort of essentially your jeans and t-shirt of the Victorian era. You can wear it, just throw it on. It's very simple. It can be laundered, which most textiles couldn't.
That means you and I are wearing wash clothes?
Essentially, yes. We have our wash clothes on. Yeah.
Okay.
But so you could buy these sort of wash dresses. You could buy men's shirts, but really like more complex garment, like a dress, like a fitted dress really
Right.
wouldn't have been mass manufactured until a little bit later. And we don't actually have any of these earlier dresses on this side of the room. We sort of have the museum divided by era. Sort of this side is the earlier side, and then the far side by the gift shop is sort of the later dresses. We have 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s over there. None of these ones have labels in them, so they would likely have been made by a local seamstress, and labels weren't really common until.
But the person who made it, they didn't, like an artist that wants to put their name on it, they didn't normally do that.
Oh my gosh, I would love to find
Wouldn't that
someone's
be something?
signature
Yes, who were some of the original
as a seamstresses? And a Petaluma.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see that, but unfortunately I have not found any signatures.
Well, you
any
can
seams.
do that on yours then if you want to.
I will be signing my artwork. Yeah.
Well, have anything else to share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, I think my last garment we might look at is
please.
Jessie's over here, which is another one of my
Did
favorites.
I hear Jessie?
This is Jessie Brown, and this dress is beautiful. It's actually tropical white wool. Jessie was also a graduate of Petaluma High, like myself.
Oh, look at that.
And she graduated a month before she got married. And I don't know if this is actually lightweight wool, and I don't know if it was on sale, but it's actually the same fabric that her graduation dress is made of. So I don't know if anybody came to see the California Pioneer Women exhibit at the museum last summer, but we had her dress on display then, her graduation dress, and it's the same cream wool with red silk accents. So it's a very striking dress.
Really?
Yes.
Was the dye added later then, or how?
So it would have been, the red would have been dyed and then applied. I believe it was actually a really wide ribbon that they used to so it sort of has this scalloping effect on it.
Yes, I certainly see the scalloping there.
Yeah, and so her graduation dress is very similar, and then they took that red ribbon and then applied it to.
Now these probably are not real pearls,
Yes.
there are they, or
They are not real pearls; they are glass.
Okay.
And so Leaf from the Petalumans of yesteryear has sort of spoken to me about how they would make that iridescent effect, and one of the ways that they would do that was with fish scales, which is sort of, it's a very glamorous light for a fish scale to become a pearl button. It's pretty funny.
Amazing. It certainly looks good.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a terrific dress, and this is sort of like, I like to say about 1880s dresses, anything that looks at home on a curtain looks at home on an 1880s dress. It was the era of more is more. And it's very sort of whimsical looking, and it looks a little strange to our modern eyes, which I think is why it's my favorite historic era of clothing, is because it's just so much, and there's this shelf bustle, and there's all this trimming, and it was really a distinctive era.
It just occurred to me, I was thinking about, of course, from the person of the seamstress, but then if it comes out of some of Dad's bank account, because in those days the men oftentimes controlled the money, didn't they? Yes. So it occurred to me is that, well, some parents, maybe me in fact, is that, if you're going to buy that much material, just buy some more and we'll make some additional garments out of it. It might be a good way to do it. I don't know.
Who knows? It might have been on sale and she got a really good deal on it.
Which makes me think is that, so I guess they would take it off of a ream or whatever they call it, and they would cut off the bolt.
Yeah, you could buy, there's fabric stores in town, sort of like in general stores. In Petaluma, we've done an exhibit on Main Street, and we sort of highlighted the general store of Petaluma. I don't know if then that exhibit's coming back, but I believe it will at some point in the future. It was a very exciting one to sort of see behind that material culture history in Petaluma. But they would sell, or you could go, if you were fancy, if you're looking for something particular, you might go to San Francisco to buy your nicest fabric.
Oh, okay.
Or if you were the McNears, you might have it buy it in San Francisco, or you could even buy fabric by catalog and have it imported. Although that was risky because there's no PayPal credit, like.
Right.
You can't make any claim to get your money back if you don't get the fabric
services,
you want.
And is it the quality that you anticipated?
Exactly.
And so on.
It's a bit of a risk to buy by catalog, but you could do it.
Which gets me to you. So how about for yourself? When you get through, I don't think you're going to probably want to be CEO of a textile company, but how would you like to use all this great information you've gathered over the years?
That's
what's your interest?
So I am hoping to move on next to sort of my graduate degrees after I complete my undergrad, which I'm in the middle of. I would love to always be involved in Petaluma history in some way, I believe.
Is that right? Oh,
yes,
how
sir.
sweet.
I love Petaluma. I feel so lucky to have grown up here and lived here.
So it sounds like you'll have many dimensions. So textiles will be part of it.
Yes,
and you
sir.
certainly have the depth there. But involved with the museum and others, like my daughter, in fact, she went to Hayward State because she wanted to major in art history and gallery art. And so who knows where your future might be.
As long as it's in some way tied to Petaluma, I'll be happy.
Wonderful.
Sure.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Happy trails.
Thank you.